Hey everyone, and welcome back. So I know I've already done a beginner's guide video that was quite long-winded, almost 40 minutes long, and then so I wanted to do a more concise point-by-point video just explaining a few basic tips for those who are maybe just starting the game or have started on a later server instead of, having the time to watch the longer video, which is very useful. If you haven't seen it already, I do advise watching it, but I want to give you just a few key points of some basic tips. If you're an experienced player, you may find that you know most of this already, but hey, stick around, maybe there's going to be a point or two that you don't know. So let's jump right in, starting with the basics of basics, how to add friends. Now, there's a few ways to add friends. Number one, if you see someone in world chat that you really want to chat with and have as your friends, you can click here, and then the bottom left of their page is the not follow button. You can click that button and follow them, and if they follow you back, this will display mutual follow, and then you are able to invite them to parties. Now, there may be sometimes a situation where you can't access someone's character page, maybe you can't find their name, but if you have their character ID, like here, this individual character ID is 184199. So if you have someone's character ID, you can go here in the top left in the camp menu friends section and go to add friends and type in that ID number, and then you get them here, and then you can open a chat with them and also follow them from here. So that's just something for those who maybe didn't know that. So next up, let's talk a bit about the partnering system for the main story journey. Now, when you're partnered up with someone in the main story, which unlocks when you reach about level 10 in the base class, so very early on, you both progress through the main story together. And if one person pushes the stage advancement button, it'll advance both players. So it's very useful if you have, a party member that is maybe not going to be available for a push. You can push both of your characters together, which is very, very handy. Now, some people do sometimes ask, is there a best composition for the main story journey? And the answer is technically yes. Ideally speaking, in the very, very long term, it is going to be more beneficial for most players to run a balanced main story party, i.e. one DPS and one tank, or one DPS and one healer. The reason for this is as we get further into the game, there are going to be journey bosses that are challenging enough that you will need a tank or a healer in order to pass them. Now, this probably won't apply to you if you're a whale player or even probably, a mid-tier spender or above, but it's just important to note that if you wanted to speak purely from a min-maxing perspective, a tank and a DPS or a healer and a DPS would be best. And you can go here into the companion menu, by the way. You can see, what your partner has been doing, and as well get more information here. And if you want to find a party, the button is there as well, and you can see a list of people who are on the same stage as you. So next up, let's talk about how to focus on gearing in the early game. So when you're just starting out and maybe you don't have enough resources to fully upgrade all of your gear, there's an important priority you should focus on, and that is in the pieces that give attack. So when you click on a piece of gear, you can actually see here the primary stat that increases when you enhance that gear slot. So for weapons, weapons give attack. Rings also give attack. And finally, gloves give attack. So when you're trying to prioritize what resources you should be spending where, for example, in the early game where gold might be a bit scarce when the black ash materials also, which are used to go through certain level thresholds on the enhancement system, if you don't have that many of those, then you should prioritize focusing those on the weapons, the ring, and the gloves, since those give attack. You can see here, for example, the chest gives defense, which is less critical, at least for DPS. So that's how to focus that. Now, in the long term, you are, of course, going to need your defensive abilities, such as, evasion and so on and so forth, because you're going to run into bosses that will deal a lot of damage to you, even if you're not a tank or a healer. So you need to watch out for that and have sufficient evasion and defense to be able to deal with those bosses. So next up, let's talk a little bit about the dungeons that you have in the game to grind. So the most important dungeons there's all important, but the most important are the rifts, which you should absolutely be doing every single day. The rifts drop equipment and crystals, which you can use to turn your gear to legendary. Now, the rifts You can enter rifts and open the chest using stamina. The stamina recharges at a rate of, I believe it's like once every 24 minutes or 20 minutes. I don't remember the exact amount, but something along those lines. And you should, by all means, try to avoid letting this cap out at 60 out of 60, because then you will lose the natural stamina regeneration. So very important to avoid letting that cap out. The only exception to this, and this is important, the only exception to this is, let's say for example you have 60 out of 60, but you're like an hour away or 2 hours away from unlocking in the next tier of rifts, then you can save that 60 out of 60 until you unlock that next tier. That's not the end of the world, and most people would agree that's fine. But in most other cases, then you would just prevent this from capping out and losing that natural stamina regeneration. So then that, by the way, is done in a party of 4. The other thing that's important to note is you should always push as far as you can in rifts. Don't just like stick at a lower level and try to clear it, because as you get higher and higher levels unlocked, you will get better quality gear. So it's important that you always clear the highest rift you have available. You'll never really have a reason to go back to an earlier version of a rift for any reason at all. So next up, let's talk about Dragon. Dragon is another important daily. You are ranked based on your damage output here in the leaderboards, but more importantly, the overall damage your party deals determines how many rewards you all get. The more damage the party deals, the more chests you're able to unlock, and if you manage to kill the dragon, you get all of the chests. So very important that you do this every single day to get all of the rewards. And generally speaking, you know, you're going to have to run, you know, it's a 6-player party. You're going to need to have at least one healer, and, you know, on the first dragon, you don't need a tank. Most tanks will run DPS spec, but generally speaking, in the first dragon, you'll have 5 DPS and a healer. In this dragon, the second dragon, you might benefit from having a tank for a couple of the mechanics, but again, eventually it will reduce to the same 1 healer and 5 DPS, and maybe in later dragons there will be enough damage output that we'll have to also run a tank and a healer in order to progress. So just another thing to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to skills, you should always pay close attention to your class and not necessarily spreading out all of your your star XP completely evenly. For example, you might find that one of your skills disproportionately gives a lot more damage than others, in which case it's okay to prioritize getting that one to a higher level and letting your others lag behind. Like you can see here, Crimson Ring in Darkblade does a lot of damage, so I've got this at 85 while the others are like already, like these are at 70. Instead of keeping this at 80 and getting these all to 75, it's better to let these be at 70 to get this to 85 and then slowly work on these afterwards. So I will also be releasing class guides in the coming days, so keep an eye out for that so you can understand, if you don't fully know, what your best skills and loadouts are to aim for. Now, when it comes to pets, and when pets I mean Melomon, one thing that's very important to remember is you cannot make any mistakes in Melomon for one very important reason. For every Melomon system, if you're upgrading, starring up, you know, investing in special skills, or even your moves, you all of them have this little button here. This is the reset button. So no matter what you do, you could always click that reset button and get 100% of your resources back for free, an unlimited amount of times. So there is no penalty or punishment for trying out different builds, for testing out different loadouts. If you do something and you don't like the results, just hit that reset button and you can try again something different. So very important to keep that in mind. Again, I'll show you this system. I've just made a video about it, but I'll show it to you again. This is the move bonus system. If you want to learn more, check out the video of this I made. It's an important but overlooked system that's part of the Melomons. So just summing up, I'm going to wrap this video up now so it doesn't get too long. So daily priorities, always make sure you're pushing stages to the latest chapter in the journey mode, and you can always click here in the top right to get an idea of how long until you reach certain levels and try to predict when the next stage is going to unlock, so you can be in the game and start pushing stages so you don't have a long time waiting at a lower level stage when you can advance to higher stages. Always push as high as you can. Number 2, just a reminder not to let your stamina cap at 60 is 60 and use it every day to farm rifts. And then another key tip is to make sure you go here into the shop and check for any high value resources here. I will make a separate video guide about the shops and best practices to buying every day, but generally speaking, you can't go wrong with getting at least the EXP boosters and a few other high value resources here. So definitely check that shop every day. And again, don't forget to do all of your dailies, all of your weeklies. Like here's the daily quest, here's your weekly quests. Check in the events section here to make sure you're getting all your login and your check-in events, as you do get a lot of resources through these daily check-ins and up to 700 Stellarite per day. So very important, especially if you're a free-to-play player, to take advantage of all the free resources and Stellarite you get from all these various systems. And that's basically it. Hopefully this very brief guide of some basic tips will help you if you're a new player just starting out and wanted to have a shorter video. Let me know if there's anything else you want to know in the comments below. We always check the comments and try to answer any questions we see. If you like the video, drop a like on it. Just subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Hit that notification bell so you always know when a new video is coming. And join the Discord if you haven't already. Thanks everyone. See you in the next video.